Talk with Miss Blaine. I am a children's librarian at the Columbus Public Library, and I've got some middle grade to young adult book recommendations for those fantasy-loving kids of yours, or yourself. Maybe you love fantasy, who knows? So we're going to start with one of the super popular middle grade fantasy series. This is Wizards of Once, written by Cressida Cowell, and she is the same person who wrote How to Train Your Dragon, which I love. So this is a story of Czar and Wish. And Czar is a wizard boy and will do anything in the world to get magic. And Wish is a warrior girl who has something magical, but it's forbidden and she has to conceal it. And they end up colliding. And you have, magic is coming about, something else is kind of stirring in the dark parts of the forest. And this is all about how they action adventure their way into figuring it out. So the illustrations in this are super cool. It's one of those books that does have them. I really like them and enjoyed it. And they're all throughout the books. I think that this is definitely a book you want to read in print, although the audiobook is fine. But look how cool. If you haven't read this series, it's really great. The humor is the same as How to Train Your Dragon. It's a little bit more lighthearted action-adventure story. It does talk about magic, but it still keeps a very lighthearted feel to it. I personally really enjoyed it, but I haven't read the whole series. And if you have read it, you're probably looking for your next good read. This is a middle grade book, so I'm going to recommend another middle grade book that's a little bit deeper, a little bit grittier, and it is the Magisterium series by super popular young adult authors Holly Black and Cassandra Clare. And both of these writers have their own young adult series that are both perfection. The Iron Trial is book 1 in the Magisterium series, and it's just a little bit deeper than something like the Wizards of Once. So those readers looking to move up a level without moving outside of the middle grade genre, this series is great. You have enough young adult flavor that it doesn't feel like you're reading something meant for little kids. So this one has to do with Cal Hunt, and he is trying to fail the test to get into a magisterium school, and that's like a magic school. So he ends up not failing the test and getting in, but something his father has always warned him about was that if he did get in, bad things would happen to him. So this one plays on that trope of the magic school in a kind of unique way because he doesn't want it. And then you find out why he doesn't want it, but you have a cool side quest, you have characters that are really interesting and flavorful. So I definitely recommend this one if you're looking to stay in that middle grade genre while taking a little bit of a dip in young adult. And if you have managed to finish Wizards of Once and the Magisterium series and you're still looking for a little bit of expanse outside of middle grade while keeping content middle school friendly, one of my favorite series in the world is the Lunar Chronicles. I love this series. I read it in 3 days. It's by Marissa Meyer. It's called the Lunar Chronicles. Book 1 is called Cinder. It starts off with our main character, Cinder, and she is a cyborg. And the reimagined tale of Cinderella as a fantasy sci-fi series is so interesting and so creative. And it wasn't like anything I've ever read before. There is a romances in this book, but they are very lighthearted and fluffy. It's recommended for readers 12 and up. But if you have a reader who's into that fantasy sci-fi, especially those readers who enjoy retellings of fairy tales or haven't read one and they want to, this is a great series. It's super kid friendly, and by kid I mean middle school friendly. And I just really enjoyed the creative retelling of something I was so familiar with, and I haven't read it before. So definitely the side characters and the humor and the dialogue and the banter is just so adorable. And for each book, you have a different fairy tale. There's 6 in total, and they all come together so well. And it just makes for a really creative world building. So this definitely recommend if you're trying to branch outside of middle grade and you're trying to take a step into young adult. Something like the Lunar Chronicles is the sweet spot. While the Lunar Chronicles is very lighthearted in a way, it's, the good and the bad, but the good guys win, and the friendships that develop, and it's just kind of a world that seems its own. The Arc of the Scythe is like the opposite of that. There is a romance in here. It is very fluffy too. That would not be my concern in this one. This is the Arc of the Scythe series, and for those readers who are in middle grade who enjoy the really powerful impact of certain fantasy middle grade books, the Arc of the Scythe is your next logical step. It's young adult recommended 12 and up, and it is about a world in which death is no longer a real thing. So people can reset their ages. They get called dead-ish, and they kind of get revived in these revival centers, and an AI runs everything. So there's no longer even individual countries. It's just the whole globe is run by this AI, and it's very utopian. But there is a problem that there does have to be people who die. So, trigger warning. And then there's scythes, who are like judges. They wear these robes, they glean, and that's their job. And you have Citra and Rowan, who are a scythe apprentice in book 1 called Scythe. This is book 2, Thunderhead. So Citra and Rowan are apprenticing to be scythes, and they're seeing now that scythes have two very different groups of people. They have those who are ethical and practice their jobs with a lot of empathy, and then you have the other side of the scythe. And this is where this book takes a turn, where you have this very utopian world where everything seems really pleasant, and then you see that maybe there's some problems. I like this book because it examines content in a really real way that doesn't seem real. Obviously, we don't live in a utopia, and there's not scythes running around, and disasters happen, and real world issues. And then you have that compared against this super fictional, perfect seeming world, and there's still a lot of problems. This book addresses things like overpopulation and how to end poverty and death, but it's in a really cool, unique way. And when I read it, I actually really liked the characters because they do act with a lot of moral heart and a lot of character, like as in I have a lot of morals. And I really enjoyed that. It was such a cool book. For those readers who enjoy things like that, like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, that kind of examines the more human side of fantasy, The Arc of the Scythe is a really cool next step. So again, that was Wizards of Once, the Magisterium series by Holly Black and Cassandra Clare, the Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer, and the Arc of the Scythe. So I hope these were some cool reads and that you get a lot out of them, and let me know what you think.